morning, everyone. Welcome to the day before your semifinal game between Texas and Ohio State. This is Inside Texas Football, your YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. And before we get started, before anything just gets completely out of hand, I'm going to do something. I'm not even entirely sure whether I'm authorized to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Join Inside Texas. You get 7 days for $1. We'd love to get you over there. It's InsideTexas.com. You're going to get writing by some of the folks that we hear today. Mr. Ian and Mr. Paul. All right, guys, shall we get started? This has been a week, and I think we talked about this even on Monday during the live when I was on with Drew. This game is actually becoming a little bit harder and harder to talk about because we've just thrown so much analysis into it, really trying to figure out what is altered in Ohio State over the last 3 weeks, because they are very much a different team just in terms of their execution, but also where we stand in that. And so today, this is going to be a short, truncated little roundtable, but I want to just kind of recap a little bit about where we are after looking at this team this week, after doing our game analysis and plan. So I'll start with you, Paul. This was a game, and listening to, for those of you that are just now getting into this and want to listen to some of this analysis, please check out the IT Lives with Ian and Homer and Paul and Homer. They really do get in the weeds on this stuff. But just maybe from a 30,000 foot view, Paul, what are some of the things that immediately jump out at you with this Ohio State team?
This is the most athletic team in the Final Four. They've got the best skill talent. If you threw open all classifications, if you threw open the draft, Jeremiah Smith's the first pick taken, and he's been weaponized. Yeah. Ohio State did a bunch of reflection after their humiliating loss to Michigan, where they basically coached themselves out of that game, and they scrapped everything. And I don't mean they tweaked or added a wrinkle here or there. I mean, they scrapped everything, particularly on offense. Completely changed their running game. They went from a zone-heavy run game to counters. No team runs more counters now than Ohio State. They were about 10% counter in the regular season.
It's something like 70 now, isn't it?
They've run 43 gap blocking schemes and 13 zone. So they literally altered their entire running game. And I think it took Tennessee and Oregon by surprise. I think
it would. Yeah.
Now there's no excuses. There's no surprise. Ohio State is a counter gap running team. Prepare accordingly. And then in the passing game, they decided to take the bold step to throw the ball downfield to their NFL receivers.
To their wildly talented people, yeah.
And Tennessee and Oregon, based on the game film, were surprised by that as well, because there's lots of Will Howard dropping back and releasing the ball after about 1.5 seconds to a streaking wide open receiver running down a seam. And, these are things that, look, Ohio State's got great players. They're playing great. Texas, frankly, isn't playing that great. They kind of look like they have all year, which is gutting out wins and advancing to the next opponent. But the novelty of Ohio State should have worn off by now. The fact that they're doing different stuff. The other challenge that Ian and I have written about is their defense is doing something pretty novel in terms of how they line up, in terms of what their sort of new base is. They're playing a 3-high safety defense where they're having Downs, Caleb Downs, their star safety, effectively play middle linebacker from 10 yards deep, while they have their nickel actually playing free safety along with Ransom. I think Ransom and Downs are the best safety combo in America. I don't think they could get away with this defense without those two. But the other two that they really need are those two defensive ends who have been outstanding. They're lining them up often straight up on the offensive tackle or even inside the offensive tackle and then stunting with them. And the problem with these guys is they're big and physical enough that they can actually hold up against O-linemen straight up, but they're way quicker, way more agile, and that's causing a lot of problems. And so where it appears you should be able to run the ball in Ohio State, you can't. Yeah. And where you should be throwing the ball, or at least where most college quarterbacks want to throw the ball between the hashes, Ohio State has a bunch of dudes standing there saying, you will not throw the ball here. So Texas is going to have to find a way to win matchups one-on-one outside on their corners, outside the hashes. and they've got to find a way to get Gunnar Helm, Jaden Blue, and Trey Wisner about 20 targets on short, hyper-accurate, efficient little throws to move the chains.
We kind of talked, and so Ian, transitioning over here, I know Paul started this. Paul that was great, Paul, really outlining what Ohio State is doing right now. I think one of the big question, and the question is what do we need to do to win? What do we need to do to beat that?
I have analysis that's going to sound a little cliche and simple.
Play good,
score more points.
Texas needs to take away Ohio State's explosive big plays to the receivers by any means necessary, and they need to hit explosive big passing plays to their own receivers. I think if you flip that on Ohio State, their whole deal goes up in smoke. If they're not hitting big plays to Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith down the field, then they go into shell mode. The dog getting flashbacks to Vietnam. That's them imagining all their Michigan losses if you take away all their big plays. And then if you start beating them outside in man coverage with fade balls to Matthew Golden or Wingo or Bond, I guess, if that opportunity presents itself, then their whole defensive scheme that Paul's outlining kind of unravels. You start making Downs and Ransom play over the top and hang back and not be allowed to rob in the middle of the field or shoot downhill into the hole against the run, then that whole thing goes awry as well. And I think Ohio State is really, really unused to counter punches like that. I think that's part of the psychological edge Michigan gets every year, is that most of the Big Ten is used to they go up, they line up against Ohio State, they give up a couple big plays, and they're like, it's Ohio State. And they just kind of fold, and Michigan doesn't. And Ohio State never responds well, never. I think that's probably pretty simplistic, but I think that's more or less what this matchup comes down to.
We will get your score predictions here in a second, but we want to hear from our sponsor, Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
So, Paul, given what you've seen this week and how Ohio State is performing, how do you see this game ending up? What would be your score prediction?
Well, right now, unfortunately, I think I probably favor Ohio State. I think they have more paths to victory, and they're probably a little wider than ours. That said, what Ian brought up is a very important point. Ohio State, a big reason they lost to Michigan is because of the psychology of their head coach and his inability to deal with his sociopathic fan base. So I think that could enter into this. Things can get a little tight if Texas is not allowing Ohio State to do everything on the easy button. If Texas is challenging the novelty of these new schemes and frankly, the best receiver core in the country. So if Texas is doing that and Ohio State's getting frustrated, this game could take on a very different feel, a very different tenor, and one that favors Texas. But I'm going to go. But if I go by the fat part of the bell curve, I have the Buckeyes winning this game.
Yep. Paul's got it in here about 9 points to OSU. Justin's got it 17-27. Where do you see this one landing, Ian? Now, I think the thing that makes this one especially tough is as people that have watched Texas all year round, we know that they haven't hit their ceiling, and we know that they've got a relatively high floor. But to ask a team to hit their ceiling, this late when they haven't already is a little bit tricky. So how do you see this one playing out, Ian?
Well, let me just say, we've been talking a lot about Texas needs to play their best game and hit their ceiling in this game, right? And that's partly why I was more down on Texas earlier before me and Paul got a little more look under the hood of Ohio State, which is like Texas is going to play their best game of the year now against literally the toughest possible opponent. Like, I think there's a reason they have a lot of penalties against Georgia every time. And it's that it's hard to play your best when the guy across from you is hitting you in the mouth. But Texas does not need to play their best game of the year to win this game. They just need to encourage Ohio State to play one of their worst. And that's possible. I picked Texas 31-21. Honestly, I saw Justin got a score in first. That's what I said, right? Oh, Ohio State 31-21. Yeah.
LC's like, that's news to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at my graphic. I really messed that up. Change the graphic.
Honestly, I saw Justin's score, and I was like, that's pretty good. I just need to find numbers that are close to that also make sense. Yeah, and that's how I arrived at 31-21. And then Paul came in over the top and was like, a couple field goals is more likely than that extra touchdown. And so he just stole my score and tweaked it and made it even a little bit better.
I did the Price is Right method.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
but I think we're all in the ballpark of the right vicinity. My main guess has been that like Texas makes it a pretty good game, but Ohio State takes over in the second half, and either Texas gets close with a late cheap touchdown or Ohio State scores a late touchdown to kind of ice it. But if in the opening scripts we see, Texas do their thing and score with a good initial plan, it's always the big indicator for Texas. Do they score at least 10 points on their first 3 drives? Then it's probably going to be a good day. And if they don't, then they're screwed. If we see that,
yeah,
and we see them employing smart strategies against the Ohio State offense, then toss that score out and we'll have a real ball game.
I think that is the key, right? Is this could go either way. We're making us decide just for the arbitrary nature of this show what we think the score is going to be, but this is one of those things that could absolutely go either way. And I want to thank you all for being this. This is a little bit shorter. We're going to go to a live here in about 15 minutes. So if you have any further questions, please go ahead and stick with the channel. But we wanted to get you our score predictions as soon as we could, so you guys can bet accordingly. I think that's what Paul's saying, is you should always bet on what you hear at the round table. It is a foolproof plan to make millions and millions of dollars.